What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Morgue podcast, where we talk about the whiskey we're drinking and the horror we're watching. I'm your host, Mike, and tonight I am joined by my good friend, Ben Scrivens. He's the founder, CEO, creative force behind the horror apparel themed Fright Rags. Ben, thank you for joining me, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to hang out and drink some whiskey with you, man.
We do this kind of quarterly anyway. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
figured this time
Yeah.
we'll record it.
Yeah.
Um
Great.
and a funny thing is I'm like I think this would be episode 8. And I've kind of been, because I do the video format, I was looking at like my thumbnails and I realized that I kind of alternate. I wear like Whiskey Morgue merch and then Fright Rags.
Well, now you got
So
both. You got the whiskey mark hat and the
yeah,
last
and
track.
here we go. I've combined them together. I have the classic last drive-in shirt.
That's awesome.
And I don't know if I'll stand up here. I have the lounge pants. Uh
Hey,
I,
I got my lounge pants too. I got my
yeah,
shirt.
listen, if we're gonna plug anything before we get into this, the lounge pants are a must. If you're about comfort and like soft material, like these things are the real deal. Like I have a few pairs now. Mal has taken like an old pair and then was like, I had to buy her like so like there's a whole bunch of lounge pants
Yeah.
around the house and with good purpose because they're actually the best to lounge to lounge in. I call them like my podcast recording
Yeah.
lounge pants.
That's great. I mean, I mean, they are super comfy, and I'm not obviously I'm biased, but at the same time, not to divulge or divert too much into the lounge pants thing, but like my wife had bought me lounge pants that I was like, these are the best pants ever, and I wore them all the time. And I was like, I want like these to be like a horror thing, you know? And I was like, I
Yeah.
wonder if I can get them made. So I found out like kind of what the material was, and I did some research, and I contacted a factory, and they were able to do it. So yeah, that
Yeah.
I agree with you only because I loved these before we even made them. You know, so,
That's a true testament to it. You felt the
yeah,
material and then you went and
yes,
hunted
yeah.
that down. Yeah. Um, so for tonight, we said we'd have a few drinks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll chat a bit. I have a couple of like I guess overarching themes that we'll kind of delve into. So we're gonna be drinking some rare character, particularly two ryes from rare character. And the first one I haven't poured it yet, but is the limited edition rye that batch number 1. I guess it was released last year. So Ben, you haven't had this, right?
No, no,
Okay,
haven't had it.
good. So I sent Ben over a few samples, and I figured Rare Character is a fun one because I know you've sent me a few samples of Rare Character in the past that I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed. And even before jumping on here, you've mentioned that you've, for the most part, liked everything that
Yeah.
you've gotten from them. What's cool is that so I knew of Rare Character for the last few years. I knew my friend Chad, who I'd met through like the whiskey game. Um, was involved with them. But then I found out that this was his project that he blended
Oh, wow.
like all the limited edition batches. And this is like not to influence you too much, but this is like one of my favorite ryes I've had in a long time.
Mm.
It's really cool that Chad blended it and he's an awesome guy. So yeah, I figured we start with that. So we'll pour it. We'll just kind of like do our
Yeah.
initial kind of reaction and then we'll jump into some conversation. So yeah,
They're
this
all
is
single
a
barrels, right?
pardon me.
They're all single barrels, aren't they?
So this is the thing. They are like they've built everything off of the single barrel program. And the
Mhm.
second one tonight that we drink is a single barrel. But they wanted to get into like batching and kind of, I guess,
Uh,
having a few releases a year. Um, so it's kind of like a core product, but still in rare
yeah.
character fashion, kind of limited and exclusive. So this one, there's 1,300 bottles.
Okay.
So there's not that many. It's a blend between Kentucky rye and Indiana MGP rye. So I don't know where the Kentucky's from,
Okay.
but I think it makes for a really, really cool pour. It's 58.95%, 117.9 proof.
Yeah, I just
Um,
poured the. I accidentally just poured the French oak one, so I'm cleaning out my glass. I just poured that.
all right, so I'm gonna pour some of this up.
Mm-hmm. All right, now we're good. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. Oops.
Yeah, so they had the bourbon too. They're doing the bourbon and the rye.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured we kind of just stick with the rye theme and
Sure.
then we can kind of see what they
I
did with the
love a
single
good rye,
barrel.
man.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
especially with the cooler weather, I'm definitely into my
Oh yeah,
ryes.
absolutely. All right. Got my whiskey more glass.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. I have the my broke mine. So
Oh
right now I'm
no.
using like the old one.
Oh wow.
So if you're not following along with video, like the actual one that I sell is the one Ben has. And I have like the older version that I realize doesn't translate as well when you try to
Yeah.
like mass produce these because it's like way too small
Well, I
and
have an extra one if you need one. I'll send it to you.
yeah, yeah, Ben, he sent me back a glass.
Yeah. Ooh, it smells so good.
The first thing I get out of this one is just like decadence. Um,
Yeah, it's in I know this is a typical rye thing, but like the mint on it, I'm getting like a I don't know if it's spearmint, but it almost tastes like a mint what you would get in like an ice cream.
Yeah, I feel like or like some
Something
of
like
the Indiana MGP like strictly MGP rye
yeah,
is like
the 95.5.
yeah, is like overtly mint and this one has like this
Yeah,
sweetness like you said it's like in
it
in
does.
in an ice cream and definitely there's like a sweeter component kind of carrying it. Like yeah,
Does it
spearmint I
say
think is a good one.
how long is it aged? Does it say?
So I don't think it says on here, but from what I remember like in press releases online, I want to say that it was like anywhere between like 6 and 10 years old.
Wow, that's I mean for a rye that's great because usually rye, you can get away with getting younger with it. And
Yeah,
what I was gonna say is, and I don't know, do you remember the whiskey thief? I sent you a sample of that one.
that was I still think about it.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
it's in there, and I forget how long that was barreled for, and I or aged for. I think it's probably in the bottle, but it had such a barrel char note to it. I'm getting a hint of that here, just a hint of that barrel char.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been hunting that a bit more. So like I've been really
Mhm.
into the Jack Daniel's barrel proof ryes,
Oh
and
yeah, I love
I feel like
those.
it has that element kind of it's even you just look at the
Yeah,
color, it's darker. I get
yep,
a bit of that here, and yeah, definitely the sample that you sent over carried that as well.
yeah,
I'm gonna take a sip. So
yeah. Me too. Mm, wow. That I mean, granted, I haven't had any whiskey prior to this today, and this being what 58.9% is definitely heavier, which is great.
yeah,
But it doesn't hit you in like what I was going to say is it went up my nose almost like the effervescence went into my
yeah,
nose. Like, woo. Um,
nice
but
pick
it
me up.
doesn't. It's there's not a crazy long finish on it, but when it first hits your mouth, it is like an explosion.
Yeah. And I found like usually I would typically complain more about like wanting like a really bold finish that lingers.
Yeah,
But this one I kind of get this like there's the mint, but there's like this chocolate and nougat, and I feel like there's a bit of that going on. And I want to go back in for another sip right away. So
yeah,
maybe it's
yeah,
it's it's intentional that way. Yeah, the finish isn't crazy long.
yeah.
It's just kind of subtle. It almost goes sweet. It's like this
Yep,
punch, and
yep.
then which is kind of opposite of I guess a lot of the ryes that you'll have.
And there's not much of a lingering burn like Kentucky hug effect. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
really much of that. It's almost in that mintiness that I'm getting like after a mouthwash more than I get, that it's, crazy high alcohol.
Yeah. So the question is, would you pick up a bottle of this?
Yeah, I
You're like,
would.
depending on the price.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like what, 90, at least American.
Yeah, in that range.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard. Like I said, I love a lot of rare characters. There's this one New York rare character. It was only available in New York. It was, I think I sent you a sample. It was the
You
Emperor
did.
finished one.
Yeah.
And I got the same one, but the one that was in Kentucky.
Hmm.
It was the same like label and everything, but it was the Kentucky version, Amberana, and I hated it. It
Interesting.
was
Yeah.
so over Amberana, like it was, and with the Amberana, like a little goes a long way, and or at
Yes.
least with the blend that you have, it's got to be just right. Because I love Amberana finish, but if it's not done right, it tastes like you're sucking on like a wood chip, and it honestly, I did not like it at all.
Yeah. I think so. The one you sent me, I think, was the good one, I guess, the New York
Yeah, no, I sent you the
release
good.
because I kind of was over the Amberana thing for a bit. And again, maybe some of them were too overt. I like Barrel's version a lot. And
Mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
the one you had sent, yeah, I was like, okay, cool. I'll give it a
And
shot.
Rio, of course, Penelope
Yeah,
Rio.
of course. And yeah, the one you sent me was just like subtle. It just you pull just enough what you need from those like characteristics of
Yep.
amber on a finish. But yeah, some of them are just are too over in over the top. But
Yeah, I think
yeah.
the Kentucky one I ended up pouring out honestly because I was like, I'm never gonna drink this. Like, I wanted to like it and I just couldn't. But again, that was a rare situation, rare situation that I didn't like a rare character. I have a couple. There's a bourbon and that might be a rye. They're fine. They didn't blow me away. But honestly, everything else I've had, and it's been a few other ones. I think you've sent me a couple, and I've had other ones that I've just absolutely loved. So more hits than misses for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and
and they
this,
have a good thing going with the whole like special label for every like it's all built off the single barrel, but then having
yeah,
the artwork on there.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like if Fright Rags were to have another collaboration, we talked about like 4 years ago the Penelope
mm-hmm.
collaboration, which was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
Before became they became rich and famous, Ben. You
yeah.
were in there.
I know,
Uh,
right? Like early on, yeah.
but yeah, it would be so cool. And I think it's something that would be possible, I guess, through like through your store and through Chad, even talking to him because he does all the so he
Oh,
blends and does the single barrel coordinating, the
okay.
program over there. So we need to pull some strings and get another bottle up there to 5 o'clock somewhere, Ben's local
I
store.
totally be up for that. Yeah,
Yeah, and then we'll get some Fright Rags artwork on there on a rare character
yeah.
bottle. Like how cool would that be? I'd buy a
I just
case for
got
sure.
another. I just got another bottle of ours because I have two. I have one that's unopened, and I have one that's very much, just a little bit left. And Kimmy, who works with me, unfortunately, her father-in-law passed away about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now. And he liked whiskey, and she had gifted him a bottle of it, and
Wow.
he never had a chance to have it because he had got diagnosed with cancer. Right, like sooner on the time that he received it, like soon after, so he couldn't drink anymore. So that was unopened, and he had a bottle of almost all the way full of Jefferson's Ocean. So she ended up getting those and bringing them to me,
Oh
and
wow.
and I like Jefferson's Oceans actually, but I
Yeah.
got another bottle of an unopened of the Fright Rags one. So
What's cool about that is that the bottle already is sentimental to you, and
yeah,
then it's even more sentimental. Somehow, like
yeah,
it went off. It like it was gifted,
yep.
and then came back to you with even a bit more meaning to that
Absolutely,
bottle.
it's definitely more special now. So I mean, that's been put away. I won't be touching that for the foreseeable future. But I'm glad I have another one that I can open and taste because it really was such a good one. And I know, I think it was Mike at Penelope. So at the time, he was like, "This is one of the best ones we've had." Like,
Yeah, I when you sent me the sample, I had a few to compare it to, and I was raving about the Canadian exclusive.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, yours is better than than the
Yeah,
Canadian one that we had. But speaking of that, it's cool because I didn't, think we'd come back to that Penelope bottle, but that's how you and I kind of connected in our many years ago, and then became like online friends. And
mm-hmm.
what was cool is we finally got to meet at Frightmare at the Falls a few months ago in October. So first of all, thank you for, I know it's close by and coming out, but it was awesome. I think I made a joke about it, but in my mind, it played out like the slow motion, like kind of like jog to you to
Totally
finally see you in
was
person.
perfect time.
Um, and before we hopped on here, we talked about just kind of like, over the years and the shifts and changes. And you realize like how large a part of that you were, at least even for me, like as a friend, we both gone through some life things, and it's always been nice to kind of come back to this
Mm-hmm.
and share a drink. And so when doing the podcast, I always knew that I wanted to revisit it with you and get you on here. But that convention in particular, so you spent just a day there. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know was there anything that you enjoyed most about like that like quick 1 day visit to the convention? Because I have a couple things that under my belt.
Yeah, I think what I liked about it, and this is clearly what I liked, so it's not a knock to the convention, but
Yeah.
it was a smaller convention, so it felt very accessible. Sometimes you go to shows, depending on where they are and how big they are, it can be daunting because there's so much to see. There's so many people you want to meet, and sometimes lines are super long and all this. And listen, that's great for any show that can get thousands of people in a weekend and stuff. And in all honesty, like I've been to a lot of shows. I'm sort of a bit jaded by it all. Like there's not a lot that I need to see or like go shopping for or people to meet, like either
Hmm.
met them or what, what, it's just because I've been doing this for a while. That's
For
all.
sure.
But I still like walking around. I still like seeing people and all that. So it's not like I'm don't like doing that. It's just it's not like, oh my God, I can't wait. It's that the anticipation isn't like the same it used to
Yeah.
be years ago. But anyway, coming into this place, it felt very and again, this is not a knock to it. This is what I like. It felt very cozy. It felt like I just
Hmm.
walked in and it felt almost like, oh, this is cool. It just feels like it doesn't feel so like trying to be huge, right? It's just like,
Yes.
no, it felt actually cool. I could walk around. Now, granted, I was only there the day, but that's all I really needed because I was able to walk around, see some people, and the celebrities were in the same space, which I've always liked when they do that, where it's possible. And I got to see a few people that I knew and friends and stuff, so I was able to hang out with that. Obviously, you, but I mean, just
Yeah.
people that I wanted to see anyway. Like I hadn't seen Danielle Harris in a while, so I wanted to talk to her for a little bit. Larry Cerner is a friend of mine, so it was nice to see him and talk to
Yeah.
him for a bit, and just things like that. Just to
Yeah.
be able.
Even you were so when you came over to like the Rue Morgue crew there was a
Yeah,
few like Yaz. I think you said you had never
I'd
met in
never met
person.
Yaz in person, and obviously I've known Andrea for years, and I've seen her a
Yeah.
few times in person, but it's been years. So it was nice to see them, and so it just felt like a cool hang. Like it didn't feel like overwhelming in terms of like, oh, I got to get in here, I got to do all this stuff and wait in line. And no, it was just
Yeah.
like hanging out.
Yeah, we walked right in, and so you and I kind of did a few laps because I was gonna go do the first interview I had on the Saturday, and yeah, I don't have as much experience with conventions,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of noted to you, I was like, why is there only like two people in front of Eli Roth? And
Right.
you were saying I forget the convention prior that you were at, but how it was like out the door, around the
Yep.
building.
Yep.
So I guess something that maybe I would take for granted, kind of being in and
Yeah.
around the convention or working it, that I'm like, oh, you could just walk up to any celebrity you want, and it's not quite like that at other
Well, that's
conventions.
the thing. That's what I liked about it, and it's weird because I and in some ways that's a bad thing because you want obviously there to be a lot of people for Eli or Danielle or anybody.
Hmm.
So for the celebrities, you don't want them sitting around with twiddling their thumbs, right? You want them to be
Yeah.
busy. That's the sign of a really great show. And again, this is a great show. I liked it. It was just for me as a consumer, if you will, as just a person hanging out, it was so nice to be able to just walk up to those people and not have to wait in 2 hour lines.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not good for them because it's a more boring show, but there were moments that I saw earlier in the day when I got there that there were a bunch of people over there. I think it came in waves,
Yeah.
but I don't know in general over a course of a weekend if it was as big as like a Horror Hound or a Monster Mania or things like
Yeah.
that.
I don't think so. Like, I mean, just even from looking online, you follow
Mm-hmm.
enough accounts that you can see people in their stories, or even the Horror Hound account itself. Like, I follow that. Yeah, it definitely didn't seem on that level, but
Mm-hmm.
it did go in waves. There was moments of the day because I had to be around there for the most of the day, and that got busy, but still it felt very accessible.
Yeah.
There was two things that I noted that as like my highlights, and I thought it would be you know, I was super pumped to do like two panels, which was like new for me, was a lot of fun, and that was awesome. And actually, Danielle Harris was on just before me when I had like Shawnee Smith and Costas Mandalore for Saw, and Danielle Harris came out and walked by, and I was like, is she that tiny in real
She's,
life? And she
yeah.
had heels on. I was like, oh, she's actually. I knew she was small, right? But yeah, it was cool to be around. But the two things that stand out for me. First one, walking around with you, it was very comforting. So you may not realize, but you were like my emotional support friend at the
Oh,
time
cool.
because I was like, shit, like we're pacing, we're walking around, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do my first panel, and I do this daily. I teach, but it's still very different. Like now there's a
Sure.
room kind of watching this conversation. But as we were walking around, it was very cool to be walking with you and then seeing so many people wearing your shirts,
Mm.
or your hats, or like, and some people know who you are and some people are
Mm-hmm.
walking right by you, probably have no clue who you are and wearing your merch. And it's really awesome because as like a friend of yours, like of course, like I was a Fright Rags consumer before we became friends, but I was just like, damn, that's so cool. Like it's just such an awesome thing because I think it represents a little bit more than, yeah, okay, it's a successful business. Like you have a lot of people wearing shirts, but it's that like community aspect. And when I wear my shirts, it's something that has struck conversation. Like my People Under the Stairs shirt, like that's a hit. Like, and that was like from the new reprint thing that you have going on.
Mm-hmm.
and that was really cool. Or like the print on demand, I guess is
Yeah, yeah.
what it is. Which when that became available, I scooped it up right away. But like so many of these spark conversations, you bond over it. So that was really cool to have that going on. But the other thing was we walked by Larry Zerner, and so I'm like, oh, there's Shelly from Friday the 13th, part three. I remember his kill. Great. And I'm like, this is cool. And you're like, hey, Larry, how's it going? And then you two start getting into some real intricate talk about like what sound like business. And I was like, kind of clued on. You're like, oh, Larry's my lawyer.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
so in case people don't know, Shelly from Friday the 13th, part three, is a lawyer. And what's even cooler, so not only does he handle your stuff, but he has a Terrifier franchise as well, and works
Yeah.
with Damien there. Um, but in speaking of that, like I think what it made me think about, and it'll set me up for a question here, is your comment section on every post is always like, great. Someone's like, you need to get this franchise, you need to print this. And getting to know you and even just hearing a bit of conversation with Larry, it's not that easy getting like doing it
Hmm.
the proper way and getting the actual rights to produce things from certain franchises and who they belong to, and you guys have to do like drafts and they have to be
Hmm.
accepted and all of that. So with that being said, is there like a holy grail of like movies or franchise or a particular film that you have not been able to cover yet, but you want to, and it just like the circumstances haven't allowed you to do it yet?
Um, yeah, I say yes and no. There is definitely one or two. But we have done them in the past, just not licensed. So, that's the thing. Sometimes you'll do limited releases for movies, just kind of doing it. You go in for 3 days and you kind of release something, The issue that we're like the two that I would say two franchises, the biggest ones are A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. I mean,
Yeah,
those are the two, um, in a sense, white whales. I for years, many years, we were talking to WB about getting the rights to those. This is going back over 10 years at this point. I would meet with them at every licensing show. Like, so just to, I probably talked to you about this, but just so everybody listening,
for sure.
every year in Las Vegas, there's a licensing expo, and it's a huge convention. And it's not just for movies, it's for everything. Anything you can license is at the show. Like, you know, anything. Like it's crazy. Like Kathy Ireland stuff's there, and Property Brothers, and like you got
Yeah.
hot tamales over here. It's like everything, but
Do they have
it,
someone at a table? Is it like a representative? Like, is that how
yeah.
it
So
works, or is it different?
not even like some booths are small, but when you get to movie studios, which makes up a lot of these, like Universal and Warner Brothers and Sony and stuff, they go all out. I mean, millions of dollars spent on these booths, like huge, projection, panel LED panels showing like previews of stuff. Universal usually, like I was at a meeting at Universal and I was sitting right next to the Dodge Charger that was in Fast and Furious one or two one.
Wow.
Like they just had it there. Like
Yeah.
they usually like Warner Brothers usually has like props on set. You could sit in the Game of Thrones prop and stuff,
Nice.
and it's wild. And the thing about it is a lot of business gets done, via Zoom or on phones or email. But once a year, you go to the show and you meet with these people, and you get there. Usually, it's a half an hour meetings. Now you have to have your meetings booked. Like you can't walk in there and just sit down with Warner Brothers. Like that's not going to happen. Like you have
Tap
to have
someone on
your
the shoulder. Hey, can we talk?
no. There you just. I mean, again, some of the smaller booths for like the really kind of small sort of properties or things, you might be able to walk up there and talk to someone. But like Universal, anything that's like big, forget it. You're not just walking up there getting a meeting. You have to have this booked probably 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to start making my meetings soon for the one in May. So,
Okay, it's just around the
you,
corner. Nice.
yeah, you book out. So you have half an hour meetings and you're just running around this whole convention trying to get to your meeting and sit down for half an hour. And nowadays, the people I work with, we all know each other at this point. Like, I don't
Yeah.
usually meet anybody too new unless it's a new rep for that same company and whatever. But it's so you're just like, hey, how are the kids? How's the family? Let's talk. Okay, we got this new movie coming out. Here's what we're doing, and blah, blah, blah. Going on to the next thing. So anyway, Warner Brothers, we would meet with them because we had never worked with them. And I'd been out to California and I met with them at their offices. It's been this whole thing for years, and for whatever reason, they just were not interested in picking up another partner in the apparel space or anything else because they're like, well, we have like BioWorld that does apparel because they do it all, for wholesale, like Hot Topic and Spencer's and stuff. I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
want to do like we do some of that stuff too, but I'll just do direct to consumer. That's a different lane, right?
Mm.
And for them, they don't think they're just like we don't really care about this horror stuff. We've already
Yeah.
got someone doing it. They're on DCU or Harry Potter or something like that. So I was like, we're never, and they liked our stuff. They're like, we love your stuff. It's all great, but we're just not interested. And, or it's going to be this kind of money. Well, I have that money. I'll give it to you tomorrow. Like it's not
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
let's do it. So with that, you've also got the issues that were surrounding the Friday the 13th and a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise separately with all this litigation that was happening. So
Yes.
then you're dealing with lawsuits from the creative, Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham that's been widely publicized. I don't know as much about the Nightmare on Elm Street, but I know the Freddy Krueger character with the Craven estate. There's some thing going on there
Hmm.
that has stalled a lot of licensing deals. So those franchises have been in a bit of a limbo. Now, Friday the 13th has been settled, even though they're moving forward with this Jason Universe thing. That's a whole other discussion. Um,
That's what primed the conversation with Larry there. Yeah.
yes, yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit. And we'll see what happens with that. I know the company that's taking over the licensing for that, and we've been in talks with them in the past, so we'll see what happens. But um, it's not going to be, oh, you have the Friday the 13th franchise. It's not how it's going to work. You'll
No.
have
Yeah.
Jason, a character that they want to push into a new frontier with a new look and a new video games and stuff. It's going to be sort of, I don't even think bifurcated because really on the WB side, there's not going to be much with the Friday the 13th franchise happening in terms of licensing. Like, again, like it's going to be
Yeah.
kind of, so I know I'm going off on tangents here, but the point is those two franchises are ones that I would love to do legitimately, officially, put our stamp on it, and and do it. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So yes, we've skirted things before. We've done it.
Hmm.
I'm just other people have done it too.
Yeah.
Um, that's what we've done. The thing about it, I will say this though, if if that wish was granted somehow, it would still be very limited in what we could do. That's the other thing. If you
Hmm.
ever really look at what's actually officially licensed when it comes to Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, there's not a lot of creative things. It's all
Yeah.
very style guide. So when you get a license, sometimes they'll give you a style guide and it's all the approved images you can use. 99% of it is just a couple images of the main, character and like someone's job was to design some stuff and here's what you can do. It's all been
Yeah.
pre-approved. And a lot of these companies will just take it and slap it onto something. Obviously, companies like ours and plenty of other companies like to be creative and get other artists and do things. That takes more time for them to approve because now legal has to get involved to make sure, oh, you can't use that actor's likeness, you can't do this, you can't do that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it takes longer. So it would actually almost be worse if you got the rights in some
Yeah.
way. Like it sucks to say that because I want to do everything officially licensed. And there are times where you're just like, well, it's not even going to be a thing that we can do this. So let's just put out a couple limited shirts and then whatever.
Yeah. I mean, this will come out later, but there is a midnight shirt dropping to tonight. And which is super cool. But I
It
think
is.
you know what, like I know you almost like apologize, like, oh, I'm explaining this in detail, but I think like a lot of that gets missed. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us do appreciate that info. So that's why I wanted to bring it up because even myself, like being your friend and being able to hear a little bit about that and you talking with Larry, is that it's not as easy as simply like getting the franchise, like you said. And then if you do get it, like I have a Vans shirt when Vans did the whole Warner Brothers collab. It's a square and it's a picture of Freddy in the shadows on the shirt. So when you talk about like these stock images that you're allowed to use, like that is it. And that defeats what you guys do with the talented artists you have on in your arsenal of what is Fright Rags. It's just like I love that. Like I could you can go buy a movie poster shirt anywhere. But it's that reimagining of like whether it be the poster or adding elements or just something entirely new, which is very cool. And that's why like seeing you work with like the Halloween with the reboot there was amazing because I mean, you guys, I know there was a few other licenses and whatnot, but like I feel like there was a ton of creative freedom there. You guys did amazing shit. Like hell, Jamie Lee Curtis emailed to get your shirts sent
Yeah.
over. Like that's pretty cool where you're like getting an email from Jamie Lee Curtis like, "Hey, your shirts are pretty cool. Can you send them over to me?" I think you've done well in it, but that's what you're about. And I feel like yeah, like you said, like would it look the same if you got Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th in with all the rigid restrictions that they want to put out there?
Yeah, it would be tough. Like I'll give you an example. The Kubrick estate broke off with Warner Brothers. That used to be controlled under Warner Brothers. The Shining,
Yeah.
Orange, 2001: Space Odyssey, Full Metal Jacket, and they ended up working with another licensing partner, and we got hooked up with them so that we got the rights to those films through this licensing partner. Sometimes these people use brokers, so the licensing agency, and then it's still the Kubrick estate that has to approve all these things.
Hmm.
The style guides carried over from Warner Brothers, but we just did a shirt for Clockwork Orange. It's not out yet, but we had to be very, we had to use only style guide assets. Sometimes that's
Hmm.
images and some pre like done art, but we still put our own spin to it. Kyle, who's one of our top artists, he was able to manipulate some of the images from the style guide that were from the movie and make his own versions of sort of like the movie poster and other things. So they
Cool.
were using style guide assets, but he was using other elements to make it different and not just using the style guide, right?
Yeah.
There was one image of Malcolm McDowell that he used probably a frame. Like we had the style guide asset where I think Malcolm's looking maybe slightly to one side. He
Hmm.
used the frame after to where he's just looking straight. And they said that's not the style guide. It's the
Shit.
exact same pose, everything.
Yeah.
It
But
wasn't
he's
because
looking straight on.
and it wasn't because his eyes were just a little bit veered one way. And they were like, that's not in the style guide, it's rejected. And we're like, what? So
So you're saying we have to put his eyes to the side.
yeah, so we just had to, I mean, it's not a huge difference. It's just we
Yeah.
wanted, or Kyle wanted this one.
Yeah, for sure.
We also knew that might not get approved, but we were just hoping it would because it was literally the same thing. We just, he thought that one looked better, and I agreed. But I mean, this one looks fine. It's not like it's a problem. It's just you made a slight creative choice, and they just caught right onto it. And it's just sort of like, holy cow, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta jump through everything. Well, I do know
Mhm.
that I will definitely be picking one of those up. Even if he's looking off to the side, I'll still because I'm a huge fan of the movie and like you said with Kyle and like the work Justin does and like
Yeah.
all the artists there. And again, it's one other like layer. It's like you're going to acquire a franchise, you go out, you put down money, you get it, and then you pay artists and then you create this and then you send it back and then they're like
Mm-hmm.
yay or nay. So I think like it's like I kind of wanted to touch on that tonight because I think
Sure.
like that gets overlooked a bit, right? And it's very easy to like go online and be like, get this, put this out, right? And it's not
Or
quite
or
that.
it's easy to go, hey, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Like,
Yeah.
sort of like, well, sometimes,
Everyone's pro creative
yeah.
genius comes out
But
when
we
that
get a lot
happens.
of free advice.
Yeah.
We get a
That's a
lot of
good way to just free some free advice in the comment section. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um So coming back to like the horror convention, because for the first half I wanted to kind of touch on this. When we set this up, you said you're going off to Horror Hound very soon. So when we were
yeah,
kind of planning, I said, okay, we would touch base before you take off. And it made me think like, man, you've been doing horror conventions for like 20 years. I think this
yeah.
summer would be because 2005, I think was your first was it with Fright Rags your first?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So obviously, starting Fright Rags in 2003, the first show we did was, yeah, you're right, August 2005. And that was my first horror convention, period. I'd
Yeah.
never been to one before. So my first experience ever was selling at a horror convention.
Yeah, that's kind of like the boat I'm in. Like I told you that you and I had the same thing. We had friends growing up. Like I was the horror guy, but I never really had a group who was like, let's go down to a convention. I don't even know what existed, to be honest, when I
Yeah.
was a teen. But Um, so what's cool about what you do on Fright Rags is there's obviously all the shirts, the releases, and we'll get into other stuff later because not just shirts. There's a ton of you guys. Your catalog's huge, and I don't know when I really look at it. Like you offer so many diverse and cool things. But what I love is like when you kind of share story times. And you'll like whether it's a bit about your life and your experience, which is nice to know who's behind the brand. But the one that's very popular is with George Romero at Monster Mania.
Hmm.
And there's like you and Justin of like Trick or Treat Studios sitting at his feet like children. And like literally you call like story time and like you look at the
Yeah.
picture and you two are sitting there and rightfully so because I would be sitting at his feet. So you got invited in there. I feel like there's so many cool moments like that. But the one that I was curious about, because it kind of involved bourbon, and I don't know if we really touched on it, but you mentioned that like you were drinking with Sam Raimi. Um, how did that come to be, and how did you find out like Sam's a whiskey guy, and how did you two connect and share a drink?
So, we were at Horror Hound last March, so 2024, and the thing about Horror Hound is you have this convention, and then there's the convention hall, and there's a hotel that's connected to it, and that's the Hyatt, and that is only for vendors and celebrity guests.
Okay.
And then across the street is the main hotel where most of the people stay. So we always stay at the Hyatt. We're a vendor, and it's nice to be connected to the hotel. You just come downstairs and walk across, right? And the the lobby is small. Like, I mean, compared to like a Monster Mania Crown Plaza, the lobby's pretty big. Everyone hangs out there. With Horror Hound, the lobby is pretty small. It's got a little bar in it, which Damien from Mezco and I were great friends. We finished, and actually with Jeremy's help, but it was mostly Damien and I because I think Jeremy had one drink. We opened and finished a bottle of New Riff that one night a
Nice.
couple of years ago. But so anyway, it's very quiet over there because almost everybody's across the street partying. They have like bands and stuff, so everyone's over there having a good time. It's a lot more just chill over at the Hyatt. There's definitely people there and whatever, but it's chill. So we, our mutual friend Jeremy and his wife were there, and my brother was there, and like we were just like, let's bring some whiskey and let's all hang out with our friends, Damien and a few other people, and let's just bring some whiskey and hang out in the lobby. So we are in the bar lobby area. It's a separate area, and this was Thursday night. We get there Thursday night, just kind of setting up this whole weekend thing. So we were done setting up, had our whiskey and everything, and a lot of times celebrities will be checking in and they'll come hang out at the bar. Like we were sitting there and Martin Cove just walked up, was getting a drink, and I was talking to
Yeah.
him for a little bit.
Nice.
And it was just, you'll see people. And if you're not used to it, it's just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like it's
Yeah.
just crazy. Like really quick side story. We're sitting there. I don't know if this is Thursday night or Friday night. We were sitting there and Skeet Ulrich comes in and he was with somebody and he was at the bar. And I don't know, about 10, 20 minutes later, a guy walks in with like Wendy's or something. He's like looking around, and Skeet turns around and he kind of motions to the person. He comes up, gives it to him. He goes, "You look like that guy from Scream." He goes, "Fuck that guy, man. No way." And he's like, "Man, you look just like him." So Skeet and his friend leave, and the guy's walking by, and they go, "Hey, come here." He goes, "What?" He goes, "That was Skeet Ulrich." He goes, "It was?" And I was like, "Yeah." So it's just stuff like that happens.
It's
So,
fitting because I just had a drink of from my
oh my
water
God, that's
here,
funny. That's great.
which
So
also we've learned that this is actually like this is not licensed because
oh no, that's
yeah,
not like it
because
couldn't
you
be.
have
Can't have
Scream
Ghostface and Scream
and
and
Ghostface, which
yeah,
I've learned from you. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that was Thursday night, and while we were there, Brian Usna, who's producer of Reanimator and
Mhm.
Society and all that stuff, we had worked together and we've talked many times. We originally got the Reanimator license from him before he started licensing it out to a lot of it was before it became like a thing. This
Mhm.
because this was years ago. But anyway, I had known him for years, but I'd never met him in person. So I walked up and was like, "Hey, Brian, it's Ben from Fright Rags." Like, "Oh yeah, how's it going?" I mean, I hadn't talked to him in a while, but like we've had prior dealings in the past, and he knows our stuff and knows me, but I'd never met him in person. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "We're drinking whiskey." He's like, "Oh, do you mind if I join you?" So that night, Brian Houston was hanging out with us for like
Wow.
2 hours, chatting, and we're drinking and all this stuff. So, and he loves whiskey, and we're talking. He loves cigars, which is great. So that's Thursday night. Fast forward to Sunday night, the convention's over now. So most people have gone home. We stay over Sunday night because it's a 9 hour drive and we just don't want to drive home after
Yeah,
a
it's a
long
long day.
weekend. So in this case, there's still people hanging out, but it's usually a little bit more chill on a Sunday night. So some celebrities stay over because again, their planes or whatever take, depending when they get home, they want to stay over the next day. So Brian comes up, he goes, "Oh, you guys hanging out again?" We're like, "Yeah." You pull up a chair. So we're talking, and I see Sam Raimi come through. Now, similar situation with Sam, where we license out Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and stuff, and he's had to approve a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
Especially, I know at least with Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise, he was approving everything. So, but we weren't sending it to him directly. We'd send it to the licensing agency they work with, and then they get Sam's approval, and it comes back to us. So,
Yeah.
I was never in contact with him personally. And I did try to meet him that weekend, but his line was too long, and then he was gone or whatever. So anyway, I see him walk through the bar, and I just walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, Sam," I'm like, "I don't want to bother you. Ben from Fright Rags, I just wanted to say hi." He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "You guys do really great stuff." I was like, "Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
appreciate it."
he's seeing all that.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I just want to say hi. I don't want to bother you. You got stuff to do or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there?" I'm like, "Oh, we're just sitting and drinking some whiskey, hanging out. We brought
Yeah.
some bottles." Like, "Hey, do you mind if I join you?" I'm like, "Oh, not at all." Like, of course. So he sat
Yeah,
down.
play it as cool as you can.
It was Brian, Sam, all of us. I was right next to Sam, and I got some video of it too. It was like 2 hours of him telling stories.
I feel like I remember like you sending me just like a picture and there was like a bottle of smoke wagon
Yes.
on the table
Yeah,
and
Jeremy
I
brought
think I messaged you.
smoke.
I was like, what the fuck are you doing right now? Like, like what
It
are you
was
up to? Yeah.
it was like we were all like, "What's happening?" Like
Yeah.
he was telling some crazy stories, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Like I just wanted to say hi to the guy, like
Yeah.
and for him to be like, "Oh, you guys do great stuff." That was like all I needed. Like that was it. And now I'm drinking whiskey with him. At one point, he like spilled some on him. I'm like, "You need more?" Or, like
Yeah.
it was wild. And then when he ended up going to bed, I think that we ended up going to bed right after. It was like 2 in the morning or something. And I was like, what just happened? Like
Yeah.
shit like that happens sometimes where you're just like, did that just happen? Like I can't and again, like, you know, we're all just fans too. You know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah.
fans. Like it hits me like, yeah, in some ways I'm jaded, meeting people sometimes, whatever, but I'm still just a fan like anybody else. So still hanging out and meeting, it's like, it's still, there's that part of your brain that goes, "You're hanging out with Sam Raimi right now, drinking whiskey." Like that's fucking,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and but there's also that like humanizing element that it's just like now you're like, oh, Sam just wants to hang out with
Yeah,
some like decent people and have a
totally.
drink. And and obviously I'm a little bit biased because of like Whiskey Morgue, but like when you share that story, the fact that like it kind of like a couple bottles of whiskey brought people around a table
Yeah.
to hang out, like
Yep.
that's what like what I enjoy the most and kind of like a conversation kind of based off of having a few drinks and being
Yep.
able to do that. And then yeah, part of you is like pinch me. I'm having a drink with Sam Raimi and he's telling all these stories, but then also you just see that he's another human being who wants to have a drink and hang out
Oh yeah.
with some people as well, which is like it's
Yeah. There
cool to
was
kind of see
no
that
there was
side.
no air or pretense or anything. He
Yeah,
was just hanging out, and who knows? He probably doesn't even remember doing that, and that's fine. But like, he gave us memories forever. Like,
for sure.
he was just super cool, super awesome, and it was just like, wow, that was just an amazing experience. I was just glad to just be a part of it, just to sit there listening. Like, that's
Yeah.
all I do. It's like, just listen. I don't need to talk.
So, Horror Hound is coming up again. So as we said, we were heading off to the lineup's stacked. Like it's like the Terrifier franchise. Like they're all
Yep.
there. Anybody involved. Corey Taylor, who you work with in
Mm-hmm.
Search of Darkness, which is cool. Ty West, like Spence from Ice Nine Kills. Like there's a lot of cool. Like I like. There's a lot of music. Like Randy's there from Lamb of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's cool that there's a mix of like music and horror and kind of like that overlap. Is there anyone there that in particular that you look forward to connecting with, or maybe you haven't connected with before that'd be cool to you chat with, whether it be over a drink or just having some conversation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Corey and his wife Alicia. Is it Alicia or Alicia? I don't remember how to say it, but it's funny. I messaged Corey. So Kimmy, who is I mentioned before, works with me. She's met Corey and Alicia. Like at least I don't know if she's met them. No, she must have met them in person. I think she's seen them tons of time in concert. What am I talking about? But anyway, she's been friends with them for a while, and I know he likes our stuff, and so there's that connection too. But I remember this was a couple years ago. I saw his he did a forward in a book about the 80s, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I DM'd him on Instagram. Like I just figured I'd just like, hey Corey, I'd never talked to him, by the way.
Yeah.
But I just said, hey Corey, I read your forward in that book. It was really good, just saying whatever, And someone wrote back, he goes, hey, this is so and so who manages Corey's account. Corey just wanted me to give you his number so you could just text him directly. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like that wasn't what I was angling for.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay. So I texted him. He's like, hey, what's up? I was like, that's weird. He got right back. So I mean, I don't do that often, but I'd gotten a new guitar. I was like probably like 6 months or a year later. It's one of the types of guitars he likes. I didn't
Yeah.
wasn't the reason I got it. It was just had me the same brand. So I sent him a picture. He's like, oh man, that's rad. So it's like he would respond right away. But
Yeah.
that's been a few years. So I just want to like hopefully get a chance to meet him and be like, hey, like I just want to like say, hey, again, same thing. Ben from Fright Rags, just want to say hi and hopefully have him put a face with the name. He knows Kimmy and
Yeah.
Alicia too, and I know they speak a lot, but that would be cool. And then David Howard Thornton would be nice to meet, and the people from Terrifier, because I recently got into that, and of course we're doing the shirts and stuff, and
Yeah.
I actually do need to talk to them about potentially doing some autographs for cards, because we're going to be doing trading cards.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
I was gonna
that
try to tease some things out of you, but you're just kind of giving it to me.
yeah, no,
Anyway.
that
Yeah.
that's a scoop, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually do want to talk to them, but luckily there's not a ton of people that like. It's hard when there's a lot of people that you want to either make a connection with or meet, because it does take time, and you're not sure how it's going to go, and
Yeah.
it feels not that there's pressure, but you're like, I hope this goes well. Where it's like, oh, there's not a ton of people I need to do that with. Okay, good. I just it's chill.
Yeah.
But hopefully I'll see Spencer again. I've met him a couple times, and I've talked to him a few times. He's a nice guy, so it'd be cool to see him again. Yeah, I forget who else is there that I've either met before or no, but
It's funny you watch something on online, or like I watch In Search of Darkness, because you and Corey were talking about, and I don't know if I preface this, we keep saying Corey, but like Corey Taylor Slipknot
yeah.
is who we're discussing, but you two were talking about scanners, I think simultaneously in the clip.
Oh, that's
So in your
right.
head, and like I should know more, like dabbling in kind of recording, but like not everyone's in the room hanging out and be like, Ben, you're up, talk about scanners. So
Oh, right.
so like in my mind, like you and Corey Taylor have like hung out and you know each other.
Oh,
But it's
no.
interesting you because you both were talking about the same segment. But so maybe, yeah, maybe this is the time where you finally connect
Yeah.
and chat a bit. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I hope so. We'll see. I mean, we'll just play it by ear. Like I don't have any expectations. It's one of those things where maybe we'll see him at, in the lobby or something. Like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's just funny how many of those interactions that happen. Like if it
Yeah.
happens, you're just like, oh, I just ran into this person. Like that was crazy.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, like, even with I got to interview Mark Burnham there and Leatherface,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, obviously I did the panel and I had like my set questions. But then we kind of bumped into each other later on, and my friend had mentioned that, like, off screen, this is really random, but like off screen, in one of the he just had a kid, my friend Zach. So he was watching the movie with like zero volume because he probably just got his daughter down to sleep. You're not allowed to have volume on the TV. And like in one of the scenes it says like tools or something, like working on like ratchet, or there's something about tools being worked on, and he's a huge Texas Chainsaw fan. So he was like, dude, it's the first time ever that they show that like Leatherface knows what he's doing with like working on the chainsaw, fixing it.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so finally, like, me and Mark are passing, and I was like, Mark, I have a question for you, man. He goes, shoot, what's up? And I said to him, he goes, is that for real? Is that for fucking real? Like they have that in there? I said, yeah. He's like, I'm gonna watch it tonight. He goes, but the subtitles on. And he had no clue, because I thought maybe there was more stuff shot. And because they made a point to mention that because it's off screen, like they just say that you can hear him
Yeah.
in the other room. And I was like, was there a scene with you like working with tools, like fixing the chainsaw? And he's like, this is all news to me. So it was kind of cool to
Huh.
just have that conversation. He was like, I'm gonna go and watch it after.
Yeah.
He's like, I had no clue that that was on there.
Oh, that's why. I wonder if the people doing the subtitles just added that in there.
Someone's like, yes, I
Yeah. Yeah. That's their like. I did it. I got
yeah. It's gonna make it on the Wikipedia page, like Leatherface
it. Yeah.
shows ability to work on chainsaw and excites my friend Zach.
Right.
All right, let's get another pour. I got a
Yeah.
few fun questions that I want to talk about, but the next pour, I'll put up on screen here is another rare character. So it's a single barrel. This is my place in New York, which is technically Niagara Falls, New
Mm-hmm.
York, supermarket liquor and wines. And this is a straight rye whiskey finished in a toasted French oak barrel,
Mm.
7 years, 4 months. Um, and yeah, this one, I mean, I enjoy. Supermarket does some great stuff. Dennis, who does the picks over there, I'm gonna get him on here at some point because him and I have become friends over time. And um, yeah, this is just one of those like awesome picks. And might I add, I got this for like 75.99,
Wow.
which like yeah, rare character doesn't you don't get rare character at
No.
75.99. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, and that's kind of like across the board with like his pricing, which is insane. And yeah, there's a bunch of these floating around there still. So if by chance you're in the area or anyone listening, I
Well,
know
I
I
mean,
will be picking up another of these, but
I'm down the road. I'm just gonna drive
yeah,
an hour down the.
yeah, it's definitely accessible free. So I'm gonna pour some here.
Oh, I'm getting okay. I'm getting almost cotton candy and confectionery sugar, but I don't know if that's.
Now I think you're influencing me because I'm like, um,
I just. You know what? I think part of it was the label I saw was pink. I couldn't tell what was on it, but
yeah, yeah. So
I.
if you're not watching,
Oh, it's a toaster.
again,
Is that
yeah, the
toast?
clever
Oh,
artwork
because
because it's French toast,
yeah,
and they
got
put
it.
the hat
The
on
beret on it.
the toast, the beret on the toast, yeah, with supermarket on the toaster.
But I am getting
I feel like there is you can so this is like an Indiana 95.5 rye that was then
okay.
finished. So it's 7 years. So I feel like there is that
Yeah.
inherent like again that little bit of a minty note, but it is to me very sweet on the
There's
nose.
um there's a company called I hope I'm not getting this wrong. It's called I think it's Proof and Wood, and they've done a series, the presidential, the senator, and the something else. The senator was a rye, and that was a MGP, I think 95.5. I think that's their
Yeah.
main one. Um I haven't had it in a while. I have an unopened bottle of one, but when I had it from 5 o'clock somewhere, I was like buying it, like I was going through it like crazy. I
You
loved it
sent
so
me
much.
a sample of that,
Oh,
and
oh,
I'll
did
tell you
I?
right now, like I'm not even just saying this. If my notepad is lengthy, like my on my phone, I'm always that's where I kind of write and jot down ideas. But I still have a note for that sample,
Oh,
just
really?
because, yeah, I was just
Awesome.
blown away by that. And again, like it's easy to say, yeah, it's 95.5. But
Yeah,
like I even often like in like defense of like MGP, it's like there's so many rick houses and like different like environments and
sure.
barrels that they use, whether it's like Kelvin Cooperage or whatever that they're using at the time. So like it's yes, it's the same mash bill, but like it's still not fair to say you
They're
know what
not
to
all
expect exactly because it's
correct.
95.5, right?
Yep,
But yeah,
absolutely.
but that one sample you sent me, man, is just yeah, like it's always good rye samples you send me. That's what I've
Well,
come to
I'm glad
realize.
you like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for whatever reason, there's something about this, and I have not had the senator in a few years, but there's something about this that reminds me of that, probably because it's 95.5, but
Yeah.
it's sweeter, and there's definitely like I almost want to say circus peanut, but the smell of circus peanut.
Interesting. Yeah.
But there's that almost confectionery sugar like sweetness that I'm getting out of it. Not
I had a
as minty as the other one.
I had a friend who I sent this to, and he said that he almost for a second thought it could have been a Amberana finish on the nose.
I totally get that because there's
Yeah.
almost that cinnamon toast crunch
Yeah.
to it. Almost. It's
Yeah.
like
Very, very faint.
yeah, very faint. All right, I'm going
All
in.
right, I'm gonna have a sip.
Mm. Okay, that's wild. There's something about that though that you know what? I wonder if it and granted this is part of that Amberana thing, but I'm getting honey, which I feel like is part of the Rio, and I think because is then the Amberana finished with also honey or something?
Yeah, so it's
Rio,
amber on a honey
yeah.
combo. Yeah.
So I'm getting a little bit of that Rio honey going on there, which I think
Yeah.
also spurs a little bit of the Amberana, which I know isn't in there. It's French oak, but it's still different enough, you know. It's like it
Yeah.
oh,
I get a
wild.
lot of like sugar maple,
Yes,
um,
yeah,
like sugar maple and like the honey. It's funny. I didn't note that the first time because I've obviously got to pair these before and whatnot, but like that honey is definitely coming through because it's sweet, but there's a different like when I think about like honey sweetness is different
yeah,
from like an
maple,
overt like yeah. Um
but it's
and
also soft on the palate.
mhm. So I
And
didn't mention so this is so 7 years, 4 months, 56.76
yeah, so I mean
in alcohol,
that's
yeah.
that's up there. I mean that's what 113, 114
Yeah,
something.
113.52 proof.
Yeah, yeah,
If you did that math on the spot, I'd be very impressed. I definitely can't do math on the spot.
yeah.
But
It was
you said
fast.
113,
Yeah,
so yeah.
but I mean it's yeah. So I mean 113 isn't crazy high or anything, obviously. But it's soft. Like it like it comes in on like a soft landing for the finish. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but it's interesting that both, I mean, they're two very different beasts. Like the limited batch we had at first and this one, but like for Rise, I just think it's very uncharacteristic because usually like Rise, you feel like you
Yeah.
fight with a bit. There's a lot of
Yep.
like overt spice on the finish, and sometimes I do love that. Like it's just like you're kind of
Sure.
wrestling with that. It's lingering for a long time. But then I'm almost like it's almost like it tastes like this like a finessed
Mm-hmm.
finish where you're like, yeah, it's not again like almost like the first one where it's like it's not super long, but it does what it needs to do and
Yeah.
it's tasty and then you're kind of intrigued to go back for another sip.
Yeah. This one doesn't have the punch the first one did.
Hmm.
And that's not even a proof thing. That's because the first one was so spicy and minty, I think. This
Yeah.
one's softened a bit, probably the French oak, but man, it's delicious.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. And for like again, 75,
Yeah, that's
it was
crazy.
like, yeah, because like I'll make this like I'll pick up a couple more and make it like where I don't hesitate to have it as like a regular
Yeah,
drinking
exactly.
rye.
You're not worried about it and like, uh-oh, I better savor it.
Yeah. Not like your um the rye sample you sent me recently because I don't know. You said it was a mini bottle too. Was it like a smaller bottle? Or no, you bought that full
Oh,
thing.
the whiskey thief?
The Whiskey Thieves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the one I thiefed out of the barrel myself.
Yeah.
And that's the one at the place called Whiskey Thief where they have, I think it's, they have 5 barrels open, 4 bourbons and a rye. At least I don't know if that's their standard thing, but like at the time we were there, and once the barrels are gone, they open up another barrel. So like it's a
Cool.
single barrel.
Yeah.
And in while you're there, dude, that place is the best. Like it's out in the middle of the fields. It's a big where like a like barn rick house, almost not rick house, but like barn where it's basically
Yeah.
rick house. They're aging in there, but they have everything in there. It's pot stilled. Then out back, everything's open. There's all these Adirondack chairs with a fire pit in the middle, and there's a food truck. And then for $35, you get as many samples as you want, and they just thief it out of the barrel right for you. And
Damn.
then if you want to buy a bottle, I think a half bottle was a half bottle was like $80 and a full bottle was like 150 or 175. And I
Yeah.
and it's funny because I was so excited. It was the end of the day. We were all going to go there. I was there with a bunch of buddies, my brother and a bunch of friends. We were there for my friends. Technically, kind of my brother-in-law's. It's my brother's brother-in-law, if it makes sense. But I grew up with him. It's his 50th birthday. We were
Yeah.
there for the weekend in Kentucky and going all the stuff. I know I told you about that, but that was the last stop of the day. And our driver, because we had a driver because obviously we were drinking, and
Yeah.
also it was like an hour away from Louisville where we were because we had gone to Frankfurt to Buffalo Trace with him.
Responsible drinking and responsible planning. There.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do was have a drink, have a cigar, and just relax. And so we got food finally because we were really hungry, and they were just thieving it out of the barrels for us, and you can have as much as you wanted. And I was so excited. And I got through the first four, and they were all bourbons, and they were good. But I
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh my god, this is amazing. I was like, okay, these are great, whatever.
Yeah.
Had the rye, and I went, wait a minute, like, what just happened? This is phenomenal. And then my brother had it. He's like, dude, I'm like, I'm buying a bottle of this. I'm getting a bottle of this.
Yeah.
And then we sat down and we were having a cigar. It was nice out, and my brother got one of the a whiskey slushy, and I was like, I'm not like that. Seems like kitschy to me. Like I'm just like wine slushies. I'm like, what are you doing? Like that's just for like,
It seems to be like I saw a lot of friends at like the Bourbon Fest in Kentucky, and it
yeah.
seems like the bourbon slush is like a big thing right
Well,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just sort of like, that seems lame. I was totally like, and then I tried it, and I was like, I need one right now. Like this is the best thing ever. It was so
Yeah.
delicious because it wasn't just super like sweet. Like they were probably using their own whiskey. So I got one. I still have the glass that my daughter uses. It's got the metal straw and it's like a mason jar with a handle. But
Yeah.
it was the best time. Us guys, like we had a great weekend, but we still talk about Whiskey Thief. And my brother and brother-in-law who bought the half bottles, mind you, of the rye, are kicking themselves for not buying a full bottle. And I said, see, like you're not missing, like you wouldn't be missing that 75 or 80 extra bucks right now. You're missing the half bottle that you didn't buy.
Yeah, and when so the last time we hung out on here, like obviously not recorded, um, I had tasted that sample, and when you told me that it was a little bit pricey and whatnot, I was like, yeah, but like even myself having that, like we're fortunate. You and I taste a lot of different stuff, whether
Yeah.
we trade things or we buy a lot of bottles or whatever the case may be. But you know when something stands out, and you're like, this is a very special rye. And one taste in, and I was like, yeah, I would have to buy a bottle of this too
Yeah.
because I can't blame you. It's absolutely
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean, I know it was expensive, but it was also a one-time thing. You'd never be able to get that again. I could go back there now and not get it.
So a funny thing I just thought about right now. So speaking of like Last Drive-In and Joe Bob, he has a book coming out and it kind of like looks at like a couple of different his journalism career and whatnot.
Mm,
Now I'm not familiar with it, but I definitely will pick it up. But I'd come across last week an old article he wrote on whiskey, and he kind of made a joke about people charging $50 for like the small bottle. And he's like, if they priced you like that, that's like 100 and something dollars for a regular bottle because this was like 2018, and I had a good laugh. But you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. But I thought it was just fitting to bring that up with the pricing for that ride. But like you said, they know. But I would say this: they offset what it costs to drink there because like
yeah.
$35 to just get pours out of the barrel.
Yeah.
Like then yeah, of course I would buy a bottle too because like I have this whole experience. I'm saving money. I feel like something that could be worth way more money. I would buy a full
Absolutely.
bottle. Yeah.
And like, not to say this is worth the extra whatever dollars, but like you get to thief it out yourself and put the
Mhm.
label on and all that. Like you're that's I mean, again, I'm not saying like, oh, you're paying all this extra money for, yeah, you are paying a little extra money for the experience, but it's also like we just said, like you will never get that whiskey ever again,
Yeah.
ever. It's not
Yeah.
going to be the same, even if they do the same. It's going to be
The
aged different.
guys, the guys at Pursuit are doing that now too, like the whole shebang, which is cool. And
Mm.
like I've talked to them, and like honestly, like I know it's like it's would take a lot of planning, but it would be so cool to go down with you and like plan a
Oh,
couple things for three
would
days.
love.
Like maybe that's we do that in the future, like just because I know I could do that, like designate some time and be like, let's just go down and do 3 days and plan a few things. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to make so many great connections, and I don't
Mm,
utilize any of it
yeah.
because I'm up here. So I need to go down and meet all these people who I've got to like talk to and hang out with online over time. And so maybe that's something we do. Maybe we go down and do the whole
Oh, I'm
shebang
down.
or
And honestly, having been there now, because I had no frame of reference prior to my trip, um, and I know I talked about this before, but like we went on, Whiskey Road right there in Louisville, and it's Louisville, right? Am I getting that right?
yeah.
Why? Okay,
I
I
always
don't
I
know why I
always
was,
like catch myself too, but I think it's Louisville. Yeah.
yeah. So that road, that street, I mean, we use those scooters, those battery operated scooters, which was total like ended up being like this pro move, right? We hit so many in one day, Now that was just going there, check. But we spent time there. It wasn't like we, I mean, like certain places, it was like, all right, there's not much here that you can't get anywhere else. Okay, we didn't do
Yeah.
tours. But then the next day, we went to Buffalo Trace. We went to oh my God, the one in the old Crow one. The I
Trying
had
to
the
remember.
bottle right there.
Yeah, I'm trying
It's
to remember what it became. Yeah.
because I think I did I send you a oh I don't think I sent you a sample of that. I'm gonna send you a sample of that. Hold on,
Okay.
let me get the bottle real quick.
Yeah.
I don't like it's right over here, so it's not gonna take time, but it's here it is.
I like that this is within reach. Here we go. Let's see
It's
it.
yeah, it's right over. Okay. All right. It's yes, Glens Creek.
Oh, I'm not even familiar with that at all.
Oh, cool. So I'm glad I had opened this because now I get to send you a sample.
Yeah.
Um, this was the old Crow factory,
Okay.
and so that's why this is OCD. This is Old Crow Distillery number 5. Um,
Nice.
so but again, our driver knew everybody, and he's like because we were like, hey, we want to go to Wild Turkey. He's like, no, you don't. He's like, look,
Yeah.
the place is closed. He goes, you're only gonna be able to go to like the small little gift shop, and they have everything you could get at the stores. There's nothing special because
Yeah.
they were renovating or something. That's why.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't like Wild Turkey. It was just at that moment he's like, don't go.
Yeah.
He's like, you can go to Four Roses, but it's not worth it. He goes, Buffalo Trace. Obviously, we already had plans, and that's the one to always go to because it's big and you got to do the
Yeah.
tour. You got to do it once, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, let's go here. And he was so great. And we already knew we wanted to go to Whiskey Thief. So, and he loved that place anyway. So he was just great to work with. But, yeah, so going there again, like it's cool. And of course, the people that you would already know who you'd want to go to anyway. But it was totally doable in a few days. Like it was great.
I think like it the more I think about it and how I'd plan it, I think I have a little bit more of like a game plan where it is overwhelming at first because there's so many like of the big places you think you want to go to, but it's interesting and I think like, even though I we didn't intend to go here, but like the places that are memorable for you were not the big ones.
Yeah.
They were like the small ones or like that you didn't even have planned. Um, so I think that's cool and exciting to do too. Like to think about like, there's obviously like, you want to go to some of these big distilleries and check them out. But whether it be like really cool product you taste or even the overall experience is probably going to come from maybe some of these other brands that are popping up and like because I know with like the Pursuit guys like they were trying to figure out their angle and how they can make it unique and whatnot because like right now we're operating out of like a warehouse
Yeah.
essentially. So I think like it's cool that like, I mean having the driver was key, obviously, and
Oh,
instrumental in
great.
like getting
Yeah.
the inside scoop. Um, as we drink here, I have a question for you. Um, this might sound familiar, okay? So if you were in your favorite horror movie, would you A, be the first to go, B, make it halfway before tripping on air, C, safely hide and be off in the final act, or D, survive to the credits? So what movie is it? And is it A, B, C, or D? Now, Ben's laughing because I just pulled this from Fright Rags
Exactly.
page, and I don't know who came up with this over at Fright Rags, but
That was Joe or Tansky, one of the two. Because
yeah.
I didn't even know about it until it was posted. I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Joe handles all the social media, but Tansky will put things in there too. So it's one of those two. I mean, anybody who's known me for 3.5 seconds knows my favorite movie is Halloween, so it would have to be Halloween. Um, I probably B or C. I'm probably gonna make it for a little while because I'm hiding or because I'm just staying out of the way, and then I'm gonna get killed. I'm not making it all the way. Kidding me? Like it's not gonna happen. Like I don't have any aspiration or thoughts that I could like survive. Like I'm gonna get killed. Like
Yeah, I when I read the question myself, I said I was B, and just because like Mal will laugh about how I'll just trip up on anything in the house and I'm like cursing to myself and I'm like
yeah,
I can't fucking make it from like one room to a second room without like stubbing my toe on something.
yeah,
So I know we make fun of like tripping on air, but I'm like I definitely would trip on air and maybe just have a quick moment before like, being killed off by Michael. Because
yeah.
I would definitely go like the same movie. And and just totally embrace it for what it is and just kind of have a
Yeah.
moment where I'm like, okay, here it is.
Like,
Take
oh,
me.
all right, this is how I go out. You're right. I probably would be the one tripping. I'd probably be like, I'd be so good at it at first. I'd be like, all right, I got this. And then I go to step out and I'd just fall. And then next thing I know, I'd look up. Yeah. He'd be
Yeah.
standing there with my knife and I'd be like, damn it. Got cocky.
And like and with Michael too, like you think we should have some a bit more of a chance because everyone talks about like, how fast is he really moving and it's the power walk
Right.
and like Freddy, if you do Freddy, like you're not going anywhere because you're
Yeah,
gonna fall asleep at some point and
exactly.
we know how that plays out. Okay, second question for you here. I know for you, like your Wilson Phillips album is your getting shit done album
Yeah.
to put on, okay? So I know this like and I've done obviously I dig into what you've done in your podcast. So for anyone who's listening, Wilson Phillips, this is Ben's seventh grade, immerses him back into his childhood room, reading
Yeah.
Fangoria, drawing comics. But like you've said, this is like your getting shit done soundtrack. Like when you need to like get an idea out, figure something out. So what was the last time you played it and what were you working on?
Oh, that's a good question. So yes, it is Wilson Phillips, their first album, but it's also a bunch of other music. I have a playlist, and it's literally called my thinking playlist. That album is
Nice.
on, and there are it's probably, I don't know, I'd have to look real quick and see how long it is, but it's probably like a 7 hour playlist. So it's not just Wilson Phillips, but
Okay.
Wilson Phillips is a big component of it. I will say. Um, I probably I had it on probably sometime last week. Um, and I was working on. I have to go into my notebook because I keep notebooks and I just write. Um, you know what it was? I think I was work. Usually, I try to. I listen to it or that playlist. Excuse me. When I'm trying to come up with new ideas and new stuff, like
Mm,
new product ideas, new just anything. Like it's brainstorming. It's literally brainstorming. But I also listen to it when I'm just trying to refine ideas and things. So I think what I was doing, because I've been doing this a lot lately, is working a little bit more on how we're going to expand our print on demand. Like you mentioned it earlier that we do print on demand, which we started last year. We started a little bit earlier than that, but we really went wide with it last year, and it's been really good for us. It allows us to it just the quality is there now where it
mm,
wasn't years before. We had worked with print on demand. We had print on demand back in 2008. Like we were doing print on demand, but the quality was not good. It was a separate part of our site, and we called them vintage style shirts, like quote quote vintage style
yeah.
shirts, because the printing almost felt like an iron on, and it felt like an old school shirt. And people liked them. Don't get me wrong, people actually liked them. I just thought the printing quality it was not there for what we wanted to do for our stuff,
Yeah.
for our like a Kyle or a Justin Osborne or something like that. But with the poster art, it was fine, and it kind of had this vintage quality where it felt like an old style shirt that you would get from a mall, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the quality got so good. I mean, really good to where I was like, especially something like a Justin Osborne piece where there's so much detail in the
Yeah.
paint that just gets lost in screen printing. Still looks great, but it just gets lost. You can't hold the dot. You just can't do it on the shirt.
Yeah.
So when you're separating out all these colors and you're trying to put them together in it the way they have to go together, you just cannot get that level of finite detail. Like we did a John Carpenter's The Thing shirt, and there was the sign, there was a sign, there was the dog, there was the helicopter. You could see the blades of the helicopter rotating as opposed to just a little blob. And it's incredible. So I thought we gotta be able to offer this. Plus, it allows us to offer a variety of designs that we can't stock everything. You can't just keep things in stock all the time. It's not that easy, and
Yeah.
it's very expensive. But if we can allow people to order something and then we print that for them, we can offer more designs, we can offer more styles. So I'm looking at how to expand that and try to figure that out. So definitely I'll put on that playlist. It's funny when we talk about that stuff because on keeping it with that, today I took my kids skiing for the first time, and my kids are 18 and 15. My daughter's 18, my son's 15, and I wish I would have taken them when they were younger. I've been skiing since I was 4, off and on. I mean, I was in ski club when I was in high school and middle school, and then I skied a little bit as an adult, and then I ended up tearing my ACL. My daughter was 4, and my son was like 1 or 2. And so I didn't really ski for a few years. Then I'm getting surgery, and then I started going back a little bit the last several years, but here and there, not a lot. So I hadn't been skiing in a while, but there's a couple resorts near us. There's one bigger one that's more popular, and then there's one that I went to as that I was familiar with as a kid and also throughout my high school years. And I taking them there today. It's called Swain. The other one's called Bristol. So Swain's a smaller mountain, but I
Okay.
know that one so well, and I've been to Bristol a bunch of times, but Swain I just love. And they've never skied before. Like my son tried snowboarding a few years ago, but they've never skied. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll take you. Let's go. And they have off this week, so we went. But driving down to Swain, which is about an hour drive, it it's another thing that takes me back to being a kid. And I have a playlist. I have playlists for seasons too. Like I do that.
Yeah.
And this was like a mid to late winter, like post Christmas, and it's got a lot of early 90s alternative and grunge,
Nice.
Sub Pop 200 stuff, obviously Nirvana and Lemonheads and Breeders and all this other stuff. And I put that on. I mean, they had their AirPods in or whatever, but I put it on to listen to because it took me back to being in the ski bus after school on a Thursday, actually, ironically, because we go on Thursdays, and going down to Swain and skiing. And it's the same thing about the thinking playlist where it puts me in a headspace.
Hmm.
And as an adult, you can attest this to, we can all can. You have these responsibilities, you have kids, you're dealing with all these things that you have to do as an adult. And anybody can relate to this. And if you can put yourself back in a headspace that you were at a time that you didn't have responsibilities. Now, high school and other things, we can go back and think of all the bad shit, and think of
Yeah.
whatever. But there was still a time that you were not so responsible for everything all the time, and
Yeah.
in my personal case, kids, family life, business to run, all this stuff, it can be heavy some days. Everyone's got their shit that's heavy, every
Hmm.
time, every day. So listening to this music, going back to the place that I have so many memories of my friends and I, like so many memories. I was sending a bunch of my buddies like texts, like, guess where I am? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Look at this hill. Yeah. Here's,
yeah. And all I did was text a picture of like the inside of the cafeteria. They're like,
they
yeah,
know.
yeah. And so,
It's funny because you're sharing this story, but like I'm not a huge skier, but I skied over the years. But like you mentioned this, and I'm like, your resort is Hockley Valley for me. And it's just
oh,
because
cool.
like Hockley Valley is the small one. My school went there. Like
Yep.
that was like the school programmed one. And then I remember going with my family. And yes, I got to go to all these different other resorts later. And then my
Yep.
friends, we went off. But like Hockley Valley, I can close my eyes and think of the cafeteria and eating a poutine.
Yes.
So Canadian of me, eating a poutine in the cafeteria.
No, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Like, and for brief moments today, because I just wanted, it's nice to take the day off a little bit. I mean, I was checking in on things here and there, but like,
Yeah.
it was like when I can return, and I'm just talking about me personally, but when I can return to this, if I can get myself as close as back to those moments as possible, and again, it goes back to that thinking playlist that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I can now approach what I do from a place that doesn't feel as like weighted down, like, oh, I gotta think of this idea, I gotta do this. No, it comes from those moments when I was drawing comics, when I was reading Fangoria, where the world was there was possibility, endless possibilities, and endless almost hope, and
Yeah.
and anything could happen. I need to be there. I need to create from that place. I can't create from a place of I have to make this much money or sell this many items or do this. I mean, that's part of our business. We have to make money.
Yeah.
I I'm supporting seven other people. You know, I'm
Yeah.
supporting my family. I mean, my wife works, but I'm still supporting our family. Like, this is a business,
Yeah.
but it's hard to just be in like business frame of mind all day. I need to be able to think of it from another perspective, and that's these types of things help me get there. So even today, it was nice to break away a little bit, and like there were moments where I was like, oh my god, I'm there again, I'm there again. It was like
Yeah.
brief, but it was there. And so that thinking playlist is the same thing where I can, there's moments where I listen to, and it's not even, it's any, The Dream is Still Alive by Wilson Phillips. That's like the end song in the album, but it comes on, I'm just like, oh, I can get there. I can, it's like a,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I think knowing like it's funny because like I wanted to talk about how diversified the Fright Rags catalog
mm,
has gotten, and I feel like you must just be playing that playlist quite more often because naturally we always talk about shirts, and like even when I introduce you, I talk about like the horror themed apparel, and like obviously the bread and butter seems to be like the shirts, and that's how you kind of built the company. But now you have like the trading cards, which are huge,
mm-hmm.
the cups, the action figures, vinyl records, like the John Carpenter vinyl
Yeah.
records, were super cool, and even like your own like Halloween
Mm-hmm.
soundtrack that you put up the Fright Scope, which is like super nostalgic. All those things make a lot more sense kind of knowing about your playlist and kind of capturing that because I think like and you've openly talked about this, but like you're a fan first, and I think that shows in what you put out there. Yes, you have a business. Yes, you have seven other people who need to go home and feed their families too. So at the end of the day, we need to take care of ourselves. But I feel like that it never goes missed in what you guys do, that it really is about what you enjoyed as a kid growing up. And if we can all kind of put on Wilson Phillips for a second and
Yeah.
and take out our fright scope, then like that's what it's all about. And even from just like a consumer, it's always been fun watching it. And maybe it has helped that I know you, and I know that like everything's super passionate about what you're
Mhm.
kind of taking on. And but so with that being said, is there anything new that you have like in this Wilson Phillips brainstorm that like so you've teased a bit already like but like in terms of like the future, anything you can kind of share that like maybe excites you about like upcoming release of maybe like venturing into new territory, or that could just be like a new franchise, or it could be a new product altogether.
Good question. So it's funny, like going into this year, um, I was because you're right, we have a lot of stuff going on, and in each, product line, if you will, needs its own, like, it needs its own sort of attention. So it's funny, like we do come from a place of being a fan, and we do come from a place of um wanting to just put out cool shit. The Fright Scope was a perfect example of literally a Wilson Phillips binge listening, because that was I literally remember sitting here on this couch. I think it was last March. I have it dated in my notebook, and I just need to write any idea that comes to mind that it's been sort of up here, but I haven't put it on paper yet. And I
Mm.
literally just wrote a list of stuff, and I basically vomited out on the page and just got it all out. And I think it was that day or the day after I started going through and I was like, okay, what makes sense here? Like what seems like it can make sense? And I just circled Viewmaster. I'm like, gotta do it. Let's look into it. And then
Yeah.
that was the road, right? But my point is, coming into this year and starting to plan for things, I was like, okay, we got to think of what we're doing with the Viewmaster stuff. We got to think about what we're doing with trading cards. We got to think about what we're doing with these titles. We got to think about what we're doing over here. So my mind has been mostly on managing all of those, going across the board, going, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we
Well, you
doing?
mentioned the Terrifier cards, like ideally
Yeah,
getting some signed for like I guess certain
right. And
boxes or
we've
whatever.
got
Yeah.
that's the thing. We've got the Terrifier cards that are in the works. We just finished, which still in approvals. We just finished Hellraiser 1 cards. Those are going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Um, we're working on other cards. We've got 10 different Fright Scope reels in the works right now, and we're actually making them 3D this time. They weren't really 3D before. These are going to be 3D. So we're
Oh,
working
that's
on that.
cool.
My point is, it's been more focused on organizing all the titles that we have, figuring out what to make print on demand, figuring out what items we can do, activity books we've got a bunch in the works, lunch boxes we got in the works. So all the items that we've kind of done before, we're working on new, items for like new products.
Lunchbox, I'll just point out
Oh,
mine,
I
like
saw,
one of
yeah,
my
your
favorite.
Halloween one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, um, I have not invested a ton of time into like new stuff, although we have a few things in the works. One I can talk about off air because I can't mention it for
Yeah,
any.
yeah. I'm gonna do an outro and then we're gonna chat.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so when I give my outro, please hang on and we'll
I
we'll
will.
we'll chat. Yeah.
But one thing we are working on that I can kind of tease is, I don't know now. Granted, you're in Canada, so I don't know if it was the same for you. Hopefully it was. But when I was a kid, I'd go to stores, um, like Kmart. I remember having this, and a few other stores. They had the vending machines with the cool movie prismatic stickers in them. And
Yes.
now that's not a new thing, and people have done it. We did prismatic stickers years ago. We had done them for Halloween. We did them for a couple other properties, and I know lots of people do them. I'm not saying that we're doing anything new, and this is not meant to say that we're bringing them back. Like we're the only ones now,
Yeah.
but what we did want to do is recreate all the old ones. And
Nice.
so we're doing it in a way that I think will be cool for people, like the way that we're kind of packaging them and we're going to market them. I think is a cool and unique way, and that hopefully will push the nostalgia button a little bit, as opposed to just being like, hey, buy this sticker. It's going to be kind of a fun way to do it. Oh, there's also another thing we're working on. I can kind of tease a little bit.
Okay.
I'm actually really excited about. Um, so we do trading cards, as you mentioned, but we are currently in development of a trading card game, and I
Cool.
just played a an early version of it that the designer's been working on. The idea here is, I like games, but I'm a luddite when it comes to like board games and stuff. Like I can't sit there and watch an hour long YouTube video on playing a game, and that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why my friend Anthony and I ended up doing. He came up with that Stop the Killer series, and we did those board games because they were easier to
Yeah.
play.
That's my
But
kind of game, by the way, too. Like, it's like
yeah,
I need to be able to jump in and just kind of like start
figure it
playing.
out.
If I have to do too much work and research, like maybe it's the ADHD. Like I just check out
Yep,
way
I
too
agree.
fast. Yeah.
And so the most recent game we did with Eli Roth was the Thanksgiving game, and that was with Anthony Massey and a designer that he brought in to really redo the game, because it wasn't just the same game as we've done before. And it was really interesting, and he did a great job. This guy does this for other games,
Yeah.
and I was like, we've been talking about doing something with the trading cards. Like, what else can we do with them? I'm like, let's do a trading card game. So I talked to him about. I told him what my idea was. I said, look, I want to have a game, because it's not only just my idea that I think it would make it fun, but it's also legality wise, how can we do this and make it work legally,
Yeah.
or licenses. So the point is, I want a game like a Halloween game where I can play with you and we can play against each other. And it's a simple trading card game where we put cards down. Maybe there's a die involved or something. And you and I are playing against each other. Maybe it's Lori against Michael, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Now that's one game that you can sell on its own and you can play with another person. But then you have an Evil Dead game that could be, Ash versus the Deadites, right? And
Yeah.
similar play, but different style, because it's a different movie, right? It's
Yeah.
catered to that movie. It's not just skinned, oh, slap this Ash and not Lori, and it's the same moves. It's different,
Yeah.
right? Or, whatever. But the engine of the game means you can cross over these. So now I can play Laurie Strode versus Deadites. You
Yeah.
can be Michael Myers versus Ash. And now you can be with your friends at a convention, hanging out or hanging out at your home, and you can play this game against each other. And you can bring the Evil Dead set. I can bring, a Creep Show set or whatever it is, and we
Yeah.
can bring it together. And now that's
That's
like, oh
cool.
my God, my Fluffy just killed your
Yeah.
Lori. Like, you are now mashing up these movies.
Yeah,
And so that is something that we are that I mean it's in its early development stages, but it's happening. And I just
that's
played
cool.
it the other day, and it's like it's there. And what I loved about it is I wanted to keep playing it, and B, I was just grinning.
Yeah.
And if I can like if it works for me, I feel like it works for other people because
Yeah.
like again, I'm not sitting there going, what do we do? And what's I mean, it takes a few minutes to get the hang of it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's something that we are uh very much moving forward on.
Listen, that's exciting. Just know you're not going to get a Freddy versus Jason, okay? You're not going to
No, you're not, unfortunately.
get
That's not gonna happen, unfortunately. Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, like I'm super excited and I feel like even in the last few years, I pointed to the lunch pail, like it was like a super cool like throwback item. And I became a fan just buying your shirts, but like as these things come up, like you're really just doing a great job of like tapping into the nostalgia. So
Thanks, man.
again, I think what it comes down to, if we're gonna kind of like wrap this up, is that the same reason we share whiskey and share stories, the same reason why I wear one of your shirts and someone stops me in public and we have a conversation, is like we're all just looking for a reason to connect. And and maybe sometimes it's that is partial like escapism from the world sucks sometimes, and you know what I mean. It's nice to just talk about the movie or talk about the drink and indulge in that for a bit. So I think like you guys are doing an awesome thing. I'm heavily biased because I'm your friend, but I was a customer before a
Yep.
friend, so I can attest to it. And one last thing, the print on demand. Like I will say, you told me about that way before it became a thing. And my People Under the Stairs shirt is print on demand. And
Mm-hmm.
I've put it up beside the others, and I can't really tell the difference. Now, it's like that the design is pretty much the classic poster, but
Yep.
there's a great gradient in like the colors. Like it's almost like it's very subtle. Like, and if you look at the actual like image, so the fact that it's captured in that print on demand, and I put them up side by side, and I remember you saying like unless it's like there, you're not putting it out. So like I like if I can like attest to anything, it's like the print on demand is like I have, man, at this point like 30 shirts, and if you put them all side by side, the one print on demand you would never pick it out
Yeah.
ever. Like it's there.
Thanks.
Anyways, Ben, thank you so much, man, for hanging out. Thank you all for listening because that's why we're here. So the typical, make sure to leave a review, subscribe, let me know in the comments what you're watching, what you're drinking, all that matters. And with that, Ben, we'll cheers and then we'll chat
Cheers, man.
afterwards. All right. Stay spooky, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, man.